Keanu Reeves had fame, money, and millions of fans around the world. But deep inside, he still felt completely alone. He loved many times before, yet every relationship left another scar on his heart. Until one rainy day, he met a woman who changed everything. A woman who didn't love his fame. She loved his broken soul. And what happened next became the most emotional love story of his life. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Dive into what really happened. I loved many times before, but none of those loves felt like home. Cold rain fell gently across the streets of New York as Keanu Reeves stood outside a quiet little cafe, holding a cup of black coffee between his hands. The city around him was alive. Bright taxi lights, crowded sidewalks, people laughing as they hurried through the night. But Keanu felt strangely disconnected from it all. To the world he was a legend. A successful Hollywood actor. A man admired by millions. Someone who had fame, money, and respect. But behind the cameras and public smiles, Keanu carried a silence that very few people truly understood. His eyes looked tired, not from work, but from years of emotional battles hidden deep inside his heart. He had experienced love before. More than once. Some relationships brought happiness for a short time, like beautiful sunsets that disappeared too quickly. Others ended quietly without anger, leaving only memories behind. And some heartbreaks left scars so deep that even time struggled to heal them completely. As the rain continued falling, Keanu watched couples walking together under umbrellas, smiling and laughing as if life were simple. A small part of him wondered if love like that was ever meant for him. That night, after returning to his apartment, the silence felt heavier than usual. The soft city lights entered through the large windows while distant traffic echoed far below. Keanu sat alone on the couch, lost in thought. He picked up an old photograph from the table for a moment, then slowly placed it back down. There was no anger in his heart anymore, only exhaustion. After everything life had taught him, Keanu no longer wanted temporary excitement or relationships built on appearances. He no longer cared about perfect beauty, attention, or fantasy. He wanted something real. Someone whose presence would calm his heart instead of confusing it. Someone who would stay during difficult days, not only during happy moments. Someone who could understand silence without needing explanations. Looking out at the dark rainy sky, he whispered softly, "God, if real love still exists for me, send her when the time is right." The words were quiet, almost like a prayer carried away by the rain. Days slowly turned into months. Instead of chasing love, Keanu began focusing on himself. He spent more time reading, walking alone through peaceful streets, avoiding noisy parties and unnecessary attention. Little by little, he started healing the parts of himself that heartbreak had damaged. And without realizing it, while he was learning how to find peace within himself, destiny was already preparing someone special to enter his life. A woman who would change everything. One peaceful afternoon, while soft rain covered the streets of Manhattan, Keanu Reeves decided to escape the noise of the city for a while. He walked into a quiet bookstore hidden between two busy streets. A small place filled with warm lights, wooden shelves, and the comforting smell of coffee and old books. The moment he stepped inside, the outside world seemed to disappear. Soft instrumental music played quietly in the background while people sat peacefully reading near the windows. Keanu slowly walked through the shelves, running his fingers across the spines of different novels, trying to clear his mind from the pressure of life. Then suddenly, his attention stopped on someone sitting near the large glass window. Woman. She was reading a book while softly smiling to herself, completely lost in the story. There was something different about her presence. She wasn't trying to attract attention. No expensive fashion. No loud behavior. Just natural calmness. The rainy daylight falling across her face made the moment feel almost unreal. For reasons he couldn't explain, Keanu found himself quietly watching her for a second longer than usual. Not because of beauty alone, but because her energy felt peaceful. As he reached toward a nearby shelf for a novel, Another hand touched the same book at the exact same moment. Both of them paused. "Oh, sorry," the woman said with a small embarrassed laugh. Keanu smiled gently. "No, it's okay. You can take it." But instead of pulling the book away, she looked at the title and smiled. "How about we both read it someday?" For a moment, Keanu simply stared at her, then laughed softly. It was the first genuine laugh that had escaped his heart in weeks. Her name was Elena. What started as a simple conversation near a bookshelf slowly turned into hours of talking together inside the bookstore cafe. They sat near the window while rain tapped gently against the glass beside them. And surprisingly, their conversation felt easy. They didn't talk about fame, movies, or success. They talked about life, about memories, about loneliness, about dreams people hide behind fake smiles. Elena listened carefully whenever Keanu spoke, not interrupting, not pretending, just understanding. And when she looked into his eyes, it felt like she saw the real person behind the celebrity image. That feeling was rare. When the evening finally ended and Keanu returned home, he sat quietly in his apartment thinking about her smile, her calm voice, and the strange peace he had felt around her. It wasn't only attraction. Felt safe, comfortable, real. And sometimes, the purest kind of love doesn't arrive with noise or excitement. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, like rain falling outside a bookstore window. As the weeks slowly passed, Keanu and Elena became closer in ways neither of them expected. What began as a simple meeting inside a bookstore slowly turned into a meaningful connection that felt calm, natural, and genuine. They spent more time together walking through peaceful city streets, visiting quiet cafes, and sharing long conversations that lasted for hours without either of them noticing the time. Some mornings, they would sit near rain-covered windows drinking coffee while soft music played in the background. Other evenings, they would walk through the glowing streets of Manhattan, watching the city lights reflect across the wet roads after the rain. And strangely, for the first time in many years, Keanu felt emotionally safe around someone. There was no pressure to impress her, no need to pretend, no fear of being misunderstood. Around Elena, he could simply be himself. But even though happiness had quietly entered his life again, something inside him still carried fear. A fear built from painful memories. Because sometimes people who have experienced heartbreak too many times become afraid of loving again. Not because they don't want love, but because they fear losing it. One evening, Keanu and Elena sat together on a rooftop overlooking the bright city skyline. The sunset had faded, and thousands of glowing lights stretched across the city beneath them. A cool wind moved gently through the night air while the sounds of distant traffic echoed far below. Elena looked at Keanu carefully and noticed the sadness hidden behind his quiet expression. "You look worried," she said softly. Keanu stayed silent for a few seconds, staring down at his hands. Then finally he spoke. "I'm scared." Elena's voice remained calm. "Of what?" Keanu took a slow breath before answering. "Losing someone again." The words came from deep inside his heart. For a moment, silence surrounded them. Keanu had loved before. He had trusted before. And he had experienced the pain of watching people leave, memories fade, and relationships fall apart despite good intentions. Those experiences had changed him. Even now, while sitting beside someone who made him feel peaceful, a part of him still feared that happiness could disappear at any moment. Elena listened quietly without interrupting him. Then she moved a little closer and smiled gently. "Not everyone who enters your life is sent to hurt you." Those words touched something deep inside Keanu's heart. He slowly looked into her eyes, emotional but calm. "I loved many times before," he admitted quietly. "But with you, it feels real." Elena softly held his hand as the city lights glowed around them. And in that peaceful moment beneath the night sky, something inside Keanu finally began to heal. Not all at once, but slowly. The fear in his heart started making room for hope again. Few months later, life tested Keanu in ways he didn't expect. The pressure of constant work, the endless media attention, and the emotional weight of his past began to build up again. Even though he had found moments of peace with Elena, there were still days when everything felt overwhelming. Slowly, he started withdrawing from the world. Phone calls went unanswered. Messages were left unread. He stopped attending meetings, stopped stepping outside, and spent most of his time alone inside his apartment. Even people closest to him began to worry. But Elena never reacted with frustration or demands. She never asked for explanations. She never pressured him to be okay. Instead, she simply understood that sometimes silence is also a form of pain. One rainy evening, while the city outside was covered in soft gray clouds and steady rainfall, Elena quietly arrived at his apartment door. She was holding a small bag. Inside it was homemade soup and a few books she thought he might like. When Keanu opened the door, he looked exhausted. His eyes carried the weight of a difficult week, and his voice was low when he spoke. "You didn't have to come," he said softly. Elena gave a calm, warm smile. "I know," she replied gently. She stepped inside without making a scene, as if her presence belonged there naturally. No drama, no questions, no expectations, just quiet care. They sat together in the living room while the sound of rain tapped steadily against the windows. The city lights blurred through the wet glass, and the room felt peaceful in a way words couldn't describe. There were no cameras, no public attention, no performance of happiness. Only two people sitting in silence, sharing a moment of real presence. Hours passed like that. At one point, Keanu finally turned toward her. His voice was quieter than usual, but full of emotion. "Why are you still here?" Elena looked at him calmly, without hesitation. Her answer came softly, but it carried deep meaning. "Because love isn't only about happy days. Real love stays during the heavy days too." Those words stayed in the air for a moment. Keanu looked away, trying to hide the emotion building in his eyes. He wasn't used to this kind of love, the kind that doesn't run away when things get difficult. In a world where many people are drawn to fame, success, or excitement, Elena had chosen something different. She stayed during his silence. She stayed during his exhaustion. She stayed when he couldn't even explain what he was feeling. And in that quiet, emotional moment, Keanu finally understood something he had been searching for all his life. She wasn't temporary. She wasn't just a passing chapter. She was the one place where his heart finally felt at home. 1 year later, everything in Keanu's life felt different in a way he had never experienced before. He decided to take Elena to a quiet hill overlooking the ocean, far away from the noise of the city, far away from cameras, and far away from the pressure of the world. It was early morning. The sun was just beginning to rise, slowly painting the sky with shades of gold, orange, and soft pink. The ocean below moved gently, its waves reflecting the warm light like a peaceful mirror. A cool breeze passed through the air, carrying a sense of calm that felt almost divine. For a moment, the world felt completely still. Elena stood beside him, her hair gently moving with the wind. She closed her eyes for a second and smiled, as if she could finally breathe freely in this peaceful moment. Keanu looked at her quietly. Not as a celebrity, not as someone the world watched, but as a man who had finally found something real. He gently took her hands in his and held them with care, as if afraid to ever let go. His eyes stayed on hers, filled with emotions he had carried for years but never fully expressed. "You know," he said softly, his voice calm but emotional, "I spent years wondering if love like this was even real." Elena listened without speaking, her presence steady and warm. Keanu took a slow breath before continuing. "I loved many times before, but those relationships taught me lessons, not peace." His voice became heavier for a moment, as memories of the past crossed his mind. But this time there was no sadness holding him back, only understanding. Then he looked at her more deeply. "But you," he said gently, "you brought peace into my life." He paused for a second, as if trying to find the right words for something his heart already understood. "You stayed when things became difficult." You loved me without trying to change me. You saw me for who I truly am. A soft, warm smile appeared on his face. You are my real love. At that moment, tears slowly filled Elena's eyes. Not tears of pain, but of feeling deeply understood and loved in return. She stepped forward and hugged him tightly, holding him like someone she never wanted to lose. The sunrise continued rising behind them, lighting the sky brighter with every passing second. And in that peaceful golden moment, Keanu finally understood something life had taken years to teach him. Real love doesn't arrive loudly or dramatically, comes quietly, grows gently, heals patiently, and it stays, even when everything else fades away. For the first time in many years, Keanu didn't feel empty. He didn't feel lost. He didn't feel alone. Because the love he once prayed for in silence had finally found its way into his life.